Retail workers of Reddit, what is the most desperate scam a customer has tried to pull on you? If you don't shut your cunt mouth, I will have to eat every chicken in this room. I've heard about people bringing in half-eaten pies and such, but this takes the cake. Just get it wet first. The box or the WI? The cashier. Deg. Oh, so this is why some stores have a we can't type credit card numbers in policy? I remember once I went to buy something at Joann after work, spent like an hour and a half getting my stuff, and when I went to check out my debit card strip wasn't swiping because it was one of Chase's pieces of crap. I hadn't yet learned just how bad those things were, and I couldn't pay with cash because I didn't have enough for that purchase and couldn't go use an ATM because without a card I had no way to get cash out of it, and I was so frustrated even though I had an ID that matched the name and looked like me. Luckily, I was able to talk them into holding my items until the next day because I pointed out that I'd gotten fabric cut and it'd be a big inconvenience for them to put it back. Naughty America. I used to work a game store a little more than 10 years ago. Once had a woman come in dressed fairly trendy and ask for 2 PlayStation portables, PSP, Toothbox 360S, and a handful of games and accessories. My store was pretty slow, so this would be a pretty big sale for the day and I was excited about it. She goes to pay and hands me a credit card which was not laminated and appeared to be printed out on a home color printer. I told her it wouldn't work and she said just scan it anyway. So I scanned her fake credit card which clearly did not have a magnetic strip and it didn't work, of course. She told me to just put the numbers in on the computer. I refused and she asked why, seemingly legitimately confused. I told her I just couldn't. She told me she would be back with cash. I put everything back on the shelves. She did not return. The 12th of September, 2001, USA. A guy in Spartanburg, South Carolina calls and says that his weed trimmer was in the Twin Towers in Nick the day before and got destroyed by terrorists, and demanded I replace it under warranty. I've heard that at least one divorce came out of the attack. The guy worked in one of the towers and his wife called and terrified asking where he was and he said I'm at work when he was in fact with his mistress. He wasn't aware that his work didn't exist anymore. I remember reading that in Reader's Digests a few years back. Really hope it true, made me laugh big time. Yeah, that was where I read it. Classic road with condensed book sections. How I miss you. Years ago I worked at a small hardware store where they were constantly getting huge rolls of copper wire stolen. One day this guy and his girlfriend come in to return a roll. I was a few months in on the returns counter. They had no receipt and when I scanned the item for the return it was only doing the price per foot. I couldn't figure out how to get the SKU or the price for the whole roll. Called the manager and he comes out and right away knows there's no way these people bought a roll and returned it. So he asks when they bought it and they say 2 weeks ago, the common response. And my manager tells them oh really, because the last time we sold an entire roll was over 3 months ago. The guy starts to get brave and tells him so you're saying I stole it, and my manager says yes. They end up leaving and left the roll behind. Before they leave the store the guy says I'm coming back and bringing the cops. Manager says go ahead, that way you can explain to them how you stole the roll. You're supposed to bring it to the recycling plants. Kids these days don't know how to salvage their thefts. Edit. Lots of people keep telling me the fail-safe recycling plants put into effect in their area. I know some places require ID licenses etc and pay in checks or take pictures. Not all of them do. This comment was simply a joke and I do not condone theft. My company strings miles of copper wiring and has lots of it stolen. We get calls from the local scrapyards asking us to send our police over, because our shit has the company name stamped into the copper every 10 feet and the company offers a reward to the scrapyards for turning in thieves. You'd think people would learn, but we get one every few weeks. I work for a fiber company, and we still get dumbasses trying to steal our cables to sell copper. They are made of glass, and stamped with that fact. I've seen the giant spools of fiber that get spray painted fiber wire. No copper on both sides to try and avoid this. That sounds like something that would be on copper wire to trick us. Better steal this one. I wish there were more managers like that in retail. Really? I can only get 1 month at a time maximum. It's a huge hassle. How many you get at a time also depends on your insurance. My wife has to take medicine for her thyroid every day. My insurance will only allow a 21-day supply. 21 days? I've worked in pharmacy for almost a decade and I've never seen a 21-day limit on a maintenance med like that. Your insurance is fucky. Did you not report it to the police? Altering a prescription can be charged as a felony in most states. It was the pharmacist's discretion. They make the call on things like that, not us lowly techs. I am sure if it happened more often it would be an issue. Side note, when we put these notes on people's files we don't tell them they are on there. So if you are a arsehole to the pharmacy it can go on your pharmacy file forever without your knowledge. I data renter prescriptions for Giant Eagle Pharmacy and it's fun to read the notes they leave in the patient file. Nothing like this customer is a dickhead, but like very sweet old lady or do not call. He gets verbally abusive to do not use staples. She is afraid of them. I'm just grateful I don't have to deal with them in person. Those notes are the best. There was one note that would pop up when you pulled up one of the patient's profile at my old job that said this patient is the worst. And she absolutely was. Sold a guy a phone years ago when I worked for a wireless carrier. Spent an hour getting all his information transferred and set up his new phone. He comes in the next day with a shattered screen. Apparently he didn't remember that I was the rep who helped him and proceeded to tell me that is how it looked when he left the store. Needless to say, the phone was not replaced. Even if he got a different person, how could he possibly have expected that to work? Some people believe in the customer is always right. I don't get it. Some people believe in the customer is always right. I don't get it. Can this shit end already? The customer is sometimes an asshole and an overgrown man-child. Some people believe in the customer is always right. I don't get it. Can this shit end already? The customer is sometimes an asshole and an overgrown man-child. This was originally meant as if the customer wants to buy X. We should frigging stock X and not try to push him into buying Y instead. Not the customer is infallible and godlike. The road to hell is always paved with good intentions. That man did not think things through. Why would you leave with a shattered phone anyways? A woman came in, grabbed an herb roasted rotisserie chicken, moseyed over to the casual seating, ate 85% of it with her bare hands, then brought the carcass to customer service and tried to return it. What happened after that? How much trouble did she get in? Edit. Capitalization. It's retail. Nothing. That's just an average day. She died. We had some members of the traveling community pull into our car park one summer. Guy comes to the till to buy 2 patio kits at £50 each. I tell him the total is £100 and he says he bought one for £50 the day before in another branch. I say yes, but you're buying 2 so it's doubled. He then starts to argue that I am overcharging him. This went on for 10 minutes with me explaining that he's buying 2 so it's more expensive than 1. His entire plan was to attempt to hold up the queue to the point where I'd give him 1 for free by acting like a dumb fuck. Once he realized the queue had disappeared, due to it being a fucking huge DIY store with multiple cashiers, he suddenly clicked and paid up, never to be seen again. When I was a cashier, people would use these fraudulent coupons that were basically get X for free, and we had a memo that said don't accept them. One woman had like 10 of them for printer ink. Before the cashier says anything, she says I want to talk to your manager and proceeds to tell the manager she will never shop at the store and all this shit, and the manager let it slide. Proceeds to tell the manager she will never shop at the store. Well, you're not technically shopping here now, so I love when people threaten this. So you're saying I will have one less potato-faced proto-hominid to deal with working here? Please and thank you. To be fair, my friend bought a PS4 from Walmart and when we opened it, it was empty with some rocks taped inside. There are policies in place to prevent this. In the past, returned new items would be restocked, but they would be replaced with rocks or some other weight equivalent by scammers. Current return policies prevent this by having any returned items considered non-stockable and sold off in auction blocks to resellers. There are policies in place to prevent this in a perfect world where everyone follows policy, or you're my store, where the ladies working the CS desk are 75 years old and haven't given a shit about anything since 1987. Management will always crack when pressured. I work for Home Depot and got a call this week saying someone bought a $300 Milwaukee power toolkit, and it was stolen off the back of his pickup along with the receipt taped to it in the parking lot of a Best Buy across the street from us. Then later returned at a different Home Depot after doing some investigating. So I told him I'm sorry that happened, but I'm not doing anything about it. Call the police. Have them pull video from the cameras from the Best Buy and go from there. Good luck and have a nice day. An hour later he's in the store with his wife saying we have to replace the tools or give them a refund. The manager pulls the receipt, gave us the exact time he purchased and which register he was at. Manager offers him a $50 in-store credit, which is way more that I would have, considering I wouldn't have offered anything. He starts screaming that he's going to get the police involved if we don't refund him or give him another combo set. Manager goes up to $75 for the store credit. Customer complains some more and eventually the manager goes up to $150, and I'm just sitting there losing my mind. Like, how is this our problem? I get it. Big box store probably isn't going to be hurt too much by giving away a $300 tool set. I mean shit. I give my contractors free shit all the time. But this asshole starts getting louder and eventually says he's getting his lawyer involved. Finally my manager says, "Okay, we're done," and asked him to leave and gave him the corporate phone number. I was so infuriated by the whole thing. How far the managers are willing to go help someone who we had no reason to help. It's not our fault you left your tools and the receipt in the bed of your pickup, dumbass. He ended up leaving our store a pretty shitty review on our online survey, and that's the last I've heard of it. I argue against entitled fucks all day long. When those fucks escalate over me, the first thing I have to tell them is at your request, I will escalate the call to a supervisor. But please be advised, nothing will result in you getting your bill waived because you didn't read your statement for 6 months. Indefinitely. They'll come back with "Oh, trust me, they will." There is absolutely no worse feeling in the world than when I check and these fucks received a full credit because they made such a scene they weren't worth dealing with. It destroys me. I want to find the person who did this and yell at them. I want to undo the credit. I want to publicly blast their name as an own shit person. But I can't do any of that. And I'm going to die early. I am literally stuck in customer service and it's not the field for me. My manager once gave a lady a $20 gift card because she had to wait in line like everyone else. She was in line like 5 minutes. It was lotto counter in afternoon rush. Jeezums. I said hello and asked how she was and she says, "Oh, I hate waiting in line. But I'm sure your manager will compensate me for my time." So I had to call because if they ask, I have to call. She spends 10 minutes holding up my line refusing to pay and has me on the phone with the manager begging for a fucking gift card. He finally just comes out and gives her one. I really can't stand this stuff. At my store, we don't do returns, but we do exchanges on clothes, shoes, and electronics. Lady brought in some jars she had bought, which fit none of those categories. So I rightly said number. I'm a team lead. Cashier said should you ask the manager and I instantly started fuming. Of course manager said to do the exchange anyway. It feels great to have enough authority to have keys but not enough to tell dumb fucks no and mean it. I bought a wrist brace from Walmart once. Got home and opened it. It was empty. Someone had already stolen it. I didn't even notice. I just went and bought another one. Figured they wouldn't believe me anyways. That's such an old scam. I remember buying a SNES game at Toys R Us and opening it up to find it was just full of rocks and paper. Had a customer return a vacuum cleaner once. My supervisor did the return thankfully. The box went back on the floor unchecked. The next customer who wanted to buy it checked it out before they went to the register. The whole fucking thing had been replaced with a catering-sized tin of beetroot. A customer called my company and complained that my shirt was untucked just to get free coupons. This woman made such a mess out of nothing, and I almost got a write-up over it. The box went back on the floor unchecked, so someone at the front desk needs fired. I recheck a lot of returns sent to my department by the front desk, because they don't know how to check shit properly. I've tried to show them the contents or what's in the box list repeatedly, and still get electronics back with no power supply, routers with no power or ethernet cord, and so many Turbox Defenders with no holster, which has a full replacement warranty on it. At a previous job, a kid took a return from someone he knew was sketchy that bought a tablet just an hour before, and didn't check the box. I was working with another customer, saw him talking to the guy, and when I got done I asked what he was there for, and he showed me the return. I opened the box and out falls a stack of paper, and no tablet. I wanted to bitch slap him. There was much yelling at supervisor by managers, and after that all expensive returns had to be checked by 2 staff. with some of my returns. I know it is an honest mistake. Usually the Ethernet cords left out of a router is, especially when they do bring back the power supply and all of the paperwork for it. Honest people understand, and will work with you. The main reason the front desk staff doesn't want to do it is laziness and fear of confrontation. They may play it off as being simple incompetence, but they are just saving face. They don't want management to know they can't handle confrontation. I wouldn't even say fear of confrontation. At my job we get a decent amount of druggies trying to return shoes that they've clearly worn for months. Luckily my manager has a policy of if they look like they'll stab you for saying no, just do the return. Idiot comes in with a coupon for a free iPod. Fine print says guaranteed and payable by Bill Gates. I asked why would Bill Gates guarantee an Apple product? Idiot left. That's almost as good as the guy with the giant photocopy of his ID, with the real lead number replaced with a badly handwritten number. He was trying to open a new cell phone account and get a fistful of lines with free phones. I stopped at telling him I can't accept copies of IDs and said if I have to tell you what else is wrong here, I'll have to call the police. We don't deliver the pizzas we make. It's carry out only. Had a customer call and have a long angry conversation with me because I wouldn't deliver to her. She proceeds to say, a couple times, you must be new here. I know the owner personally, to which I responded well I'm the owner's daughter and we don't deliver. Did you call the police about it? Seems like the person is trying to frame your aunt. Nah, sounds like someone trying to avoid half an hour of paperwork to get something done. I've said I was my dad several times when I was on the phone to their ICE helping them fix something. I've called the bank with my normal masculine voice saying I was my wife to get something done. They don't know my wife or her voice. Maybe she's a smoker. Fuck you. Okay. To clarify things, she's a primary account holder on our primary CC and I handle the bills, so anything CC she has to call, and oftentimes I have to spend way too much time explaining things to her, so whatever. Now I'm a masculine Maddie Man Piper. Never have a problem once I answer all the challenge questions. I want to do this with my full booming Barto voice. Yes, my name is Karen. A bartender I worked with got a fake one day that ended up being her cousin's old it. That was a hilarious interaction. Love it when they pull the I know the owner card and the owner or relative of the owner is the one they are talking to. I know the owner really? What's his name? Dart. Papa John? Dart. Mr. Domino? I used to work at an ice rink named after the owner who had died. Some guy tried to pull the all me and owner name. Our good friends, he told me to come by and you'd take care of me. The guy he was talking to was the manager on duty who had been mentored by the now dead owner. That was one of the more uncomfortable things I've ever watched as a man hurried his daughter and what I assumed to be their friends quickly out of the building. In a similar vein, I read a story on Reddit kinda like that. The guy that told the story had just come home from work or something when he was accosted by some guy in front of his house. The guy that accosted him claimed that he'd lived in the house years ago when he was a kid, and he was wondering if he could check it out for memories and old times' sake. Unfortunately for him, the guy that owned the house knew this was bullshit because he had physically built the house. When he told the guy that used to live there that he built the house, he promptly turned and ran away. Why would someone lie about that? Scoping out somewhere to rob? I love getting this because I just ask what's their name. The stammering and backpedaling is hilarious. Oh, I love it at my work when people say they know my manager. We sell tobacco and are pretty lax about who we are cause we have a lot of regulars and no idiots behind the counter. But when we do card, you have it or you're done. No one will help you ever. So about a month back one of the managers was on vacation, and his friend comes in to buy a pack. Now she's 40, but looks 20, and we're 21 plus for tobacco here. So she was carded by someone who hadn't met her yet, but she forgot her ID at home. She literally called my manager, on vacation, and asked him to have his employee just do the sale. I could hear his voice come through the phone, I can't fucking do that. Then he just hung up on her and she was so pissed. A similar situation happened when I worked at Walmart. A guy came in to get a refund for the Nintendo 3DS he bought the day before. But when we opened the box, it was an old beat up Game Boy. Like, do they think we're that stupid and aren't going to tell the difference? The store was open until midnight the 2 last nights of the financial year calendar. Apparently the store thought someone might come in at 11:59, the last chance they had to deck out their entire office with new laptops and chairs and shit. After about 9 PM the store was pretty much a complete ghost town. By 10 PM to 11 PM the store was the cleanest it ever was since it was built. On this one night the phone rang at about 11:30 PM. The guy wanted to know if we were still open because he wanted to buy something specific. It turned out we had it in stock and he told me, several times, that he was going to get out of his pajamas, get dressed and come down to the store. I was like, sure, the item will be at the front counter whenever you're here to collect it. So he turns up and tells me again that he had to get out of his pajamas, get dressed and come down to the store to pick up this item. It was about 11:45 PM by this point, and so I just told him how much it was going to cost, and then he asked for a discount. I said why. He said for being your last customer of the evening. I told him no, there's no reason for giving out that kind of a discount, and besides, we weren't closed yet. There might be other customers, you know. He might not have been the last one that night, and besides, it costs what it costs. He told me again that he had to get out of his pajamas, get dressed and come to the store to buy this item. He paid full price for all his troubles, but they were really comfy pajamas. You don't understand his struggles. Kmart returns counter had a guy try to return a CD with receipt. The shrink wrap had been sliced and the CD taken out. He claimed it was like that when he bought it. I told him I couldn't return it for cash but could swap it for the same thing. He went to get a new CD and brought some other artist. Told him it had to be the exact same thing. I had the electronics employee bring up the right CD, as I checked that they were the same and told him I would give him a new one. A smile grew on his face, which quickly melted away when I took out a knife and cut open the plastic on the CD. No, you can't return that one later. Another scammer that I actually caught was this guy who was paralyzed on the left half of his body. He walked slowly around the store, dropping stuff and drooling. Never did find out if he was actually paralyzed or just part of the scam. One day I caught him bagging OxyClean in his cart, notified LP and she watched him. He went through self-checkout and told me he bought the OxyClean in electronics. LP called electronics. No such sale was made. I think she let him go that time, but the next time he came in, he got a police escort. This one was an insider job. This guy who worked in electronics also did layaway. One of the service desk girls would put a giant bag of dog food in layaway. Then the electronics guy would empty the bag and fill it with expensive electronics. Turns out they had been getting away with this for years. Then the LP staff changed and the new lady knew how to police the place. A guy comes in to fill his son's Adderall script. Guy is super twitchy and son is chill as could be. For all controls we are supposed to run a report that shows everywhere in the state they have filled any. Of course the report is a mess. Multiple pharmacies, multiple scripts, multiple doctors, all the red flags. To top it off, an Adderall script within that week had been filled, so we really couldn't fill this one. Dad comes back, we tell him that we can't fill it and Dad starts going on about how his wife must have filled it but they need some for today blah blah blah. We decline and his last words to us are, my son needs them for a birthday he has to go to today, can't you help? No dude, we can't help. You're clearly taking your son's pills. Get help and stop using your son to get high on prescription drugs. Out of curiosity, how many pharmacies can you use before it's a red flag? I go to a few different ones depending on where I am when I need to get something. Yeah, I take Vyvanse, and have used 3 different pharmacies because I managed a few different locations of a gas station. However, my insurance won't allow me to pick up my script until after 25 days have passed since I filled it last. I had my bottle stolen out of my purse at work once, and it was a nightmare trying to get that replaced. I've never argued about this rule because that's the pharmacy, the pharmacist's license, and the tech's job's all on the line. Plus, his kid dealing with a crap father, and untreated ADHD. What a douche. I spilled mine into a cup of juice once. The whole goddamn bottle 3 days after getting it. So, now I was faced with having to go into the doctor's office and explain that to them. Saved a few but most were dissolved sludge in the bottle. Didn't want to fuck with dosages so went in, sludge bottle in hand. Thinking Christ I must look like some fucking druggo. Got all the suspicious questions and sat there feeling almighty sheepish but walked out with a replacement script. I'd imagine it would be like city hopping to like 10 or something different ones in a small time frame. I use CVS or my place of employment's pharmacy depending on if I'm working or not that day. Work in hospital so it's inside there, and never have issues. My mom works in a pharmacy and she sees a lot of people like this. Recently, she had this woman come by that had a lot of scabs and places on her body asking for a big amount of needles because her boss's company needed them. A little insight. My mom works at Sam's Club pharmacy, so the lady thought they could get bulk needles. But, my mom said they couldn't give her that many, the most they could give her was amount. So, she goes on and the lady leaves. Well, later that day, her boss calls the pharmacy. He calls saying he's the boss of this organization and they ran out of needles and needed them for their customers. Well, common sense is if it's a business or organization, a needle company would deliver to them personally and they wouldn't have to buy them at Sam's Club. Also, my mom explains what she did to the girl along with my mom's boss explaining it to him as well. Then, he finally gave up and said he'd just get them somewhere else. Years ago I worked at a Walmart and this guy comes in trying to return his Wii that doesn't work. I just bought this for my kids last week and it's already broken but they won't take it back because I lost my receipt. The Wii in question was the most beat up and disgusting looking GameCube I have ever seen. Like he found it in a landfill or something. I should also point out that I wasn't working the return desk or even a cashier. I was stocking the food department. Turns out he was trying to talk every employee in the store into either giving him a refund or a Wii. Is it even possible to stuff a GameCube into a Wii box? I swear I remember Wii's coming in pretty slim boxes. They're probably hoping to get someone who just doesn't care enough to argue, or someone they can intimidate. I had that happen to me when I worked retail when I was a teenager. Because I was really small and looked even younger than I was, I got all the thieves in my line. As someone who has worked in call centers for 10 plus years, yes, not you personally but there are some really dumb people out there. Just yesterday I had a Phil Tapper quick change artist try to money shuffle me for what would have been a grand sum of $5. Pissed him off when I wouldn't play his game. Next best was someone calling wanting to know if we had spare empty boxes for Xbox consoles, because he wanted to prank his kid and give him an empty box. I know very well he wanted to try to stuff the box with who knows what, and attempt a return. Of course, the folks at customer service check such boxes for actual product, and match serials to those on the box. One of my embarrassing memories from working retail is falling for one of these scams. I had actually been a cashier for probably 5 years at this point and had never heard of this particular method. I had seen people come in with cloned credit cards, barcodes switched and placed on the wrong product, returns that are filled with junk, counterfeit money, etc. but never had heard of this type of thing. Some guy came in and wanted to pay for a cheap item with a $100 bill. I count out his change and am about to hand it over, let's say 95.15, when he changes his mind and says oh wait, give me that $100 back. I have exact change. I can give you the 0.85 cents so that you won't need to give me the coins and you can just give me the $95. And fuck if I didn't just hand it over. He spaced it out just long enough that I was still holding the $95 and because I had to take time to put the coins away by that point I completely forgot that I had given him back his $100. I had no idea it had happened until the next day when my manager brought me in to review the video and asked me if I remembered the customer on the screen. I did, because the asshole was friendly and we had chatted while I started ringing him up. I even told my manager oh yeah, nice guy, and then was informed of what had happened. It's one of the few times in my life I can remember being honestly startled and blown away that I hadn't realized what happened. Conversation can be used to a thief's advantage when you're serving them. I had a shader looking guy asking for advice on something to buy for his girlfriend, and then basically told me her life story. I was thinking he looked really dodgy and probably was trying to distract me so his friends could sneak down the aisles and steal stuff, a common tactic where I work. But when I reviewed CCTV, he was slowly sneaking his hand towards a perfume bottle that we stored at the front of the till, and he pocketed it while he leaned forward to show me something on his phone. I was just in disbelief as I already thought something was amiss, and it completely slipped by me. I worked at Staples a million years ago and we had this group of people come in and pull a fast one on us. They broke up and started talking to all the employees, some looking for items, a couple others trying to return an item. All the while, a couple more are stealing all the ink cartridges from a recently restocked end cap. There were at least 30 pegs with 5 or 6 cartridges worth at least $20 on them. So about $3,000 worth of product. It only took them maybe 10 minutes to take them all. No force, no elaborate scheme. Just a bunch of people talking to other people. Damn. I really hope this didn't happen to me when I was working as a cashier. Reading this makes me think it was definitely possible. Yep, it's usually a small item paid for with a small denomination. I don't cashier anymore, but I was quick to figure out who might try something and pretending to go help the cashier out who they were trying to scam. Always told them store policy was to not make change. Period. I would rather have to explain myself to a manager, who were decent mostly, than have to fill out a report because I let something slide when I could have done something about it. My first job as a cashier, I had a guy try to quick change me on my first night. I guess he figured that because I was new and young, it'd be easier. About 10 seconds into him trying to confuse me, I slammed the till shut and told him he'd gotten his proper change and that he should leave for his own sake. He tried to threaten me and left. I told my manager what happened and gave him a complete physical description and what the scammer would do. The next night, he came back and scammed the customer service manager for $80. He did scam or he tried to. Was it the same manager? He was successful with the manager. Different one than the one I told that night. The bad part is the CSM was the one who taught me how to spot the scam. Li5 quick change artist. Essentially it's trying to baffle the cashier so you end up with more money. The quick change artist scammed a GARP web page. This guy did a two-step. First using an even amounts of money to round off the change. Lots of people do this validly, though. Once the drawer pops, though, he tried to throw down someone else and say he wanted 5s back. He was due $7, but threw down 3x $1 bills and said then you can just give me 3 5s. I just shut the drawer, took the already counted change, laid it on his money, and pushed it at him. Staring him in the eye, he mumbled some obscenities as he walked off. If someone does that to me, I put the cash they already gave me back on the counter and take the correct bills out of the old and new cash. Or if they try to add another transaction make change, I tell them I'm going to finish up the first one and then take care of the second one. I can get a bit confused with money math as it is, so I don't like doing two things at once or add subtracting from the original value. Scammers have no chance with me because I'm not great with quick math and won't even attempt to appease them. I always tell them the semi-truth that once I enter an amount in the till, that's what I'm supposed to actually work with. So no, you can't add 2 bills to get 5 back. Stops just this exact issue. On the rare occasion someone really isn't trying to scam, they are usually much more understanding and patient, and I invite them to get change at customer service, which is where they're supposed to do it, because there's virtually always someone else watching the transaction, and they go purposefully slow to avoid scams and fraud. I work at a major cell phone retailer. I once had a man come in with his wife to do an upgrade to whatever the new iPhone was at that time. While they were sitting in the store working with one of my reps, I was in management at the time. The wife starts getting text messages from someone claiming to be her husband's mistress. This did not go over well. They took it outside before it got overly nasty, and we all assumed they were gone for good. Not so. The husband comes back in, alone. He finishes upgrading his phone, priorities, and left. The very next day he tried to return the phone claiming that we had sold him one with screen damage. He brings it in, and it looks like someone took a diamond ring or something to the screen and scratched the heck out of it. Now we have a strict open the box and hand it to the customer before they leave policy to avoid these situations. I was able to pull tape, show the customer where he held the phone for a good 5 minutes without pointing out any flaws, and tell him that my company offers no warranty on that brand even if it's bad out of the box. And especially when he didn't show it to us before leaving the store, I suggested he take it up with the manufacturer if he truly believed the phone was damaged out of the box. He did. Right there in the store he called them. They also told him to kick rocks. The best part? I was new to management, so I didn't have manager name tag yet. He asked to speak to the manager and I got to give him my best evil grin and say I am the manager. He left after that and we never saw him again. Look at me. I am the manager now. A customer brought back a jumpsuit for a refund because it had shit in it. Apparently it had been like that when she bought it. It stank so bad that you could smell it through the taped up plastic bags that she had put it in. The levels of how impossible that would have been to be unnoticed by changing room staff, to then be put on the shop floor, to then be picked up by the customer, to being bought via a cashier still unnoticed. The worst part is some idiot on the refunds counter downstairs actually accepted it and put it on top of the trolley full of other returned items for us to put back upstairs, complete with a note stapled to it that said warning, feces inside. One of the bigger WTF moments I've had in any job that I've worked. Edit. Formatting. Still not used to the way Reddit treats paragraph breaks p. I worked 12 years retail before I switched occupations. One retail store I worked at used to have a return it for whatever reason policy and you didn't have to have a freaking receipt. A couple tried to return a pot and pan set because the Teflon was coming off. Brand new cookware with the Teflon already coming off after only one single use. How odd. I have to see this. Yeah, about that. There was badly burnt food in the bottom of the pans and someone had used something sharp to try to scrape it out, hence the Teflon peeling. The store took it back. Another customer brought back swim trunks because wrong size or whatever. Returns desk accepted them and refunded the customer. The person working in clothing that day went to examine them to ensure they were okay to put back out. Yeah, you materia bubbles. I totally feel your pain because these swim trunks were immediately sent for rubbish and written off because of pretty much the same reason that jumpsuit was. I worked retail several years ago, while in college. The store I worked for had the same policy. We even took back things we didn't even sell. I worked apparel, which included jewelry and some housewares like towels. Our manager would make us find a comparable item and use that UPC to give the refund. It was ridiculous. I remember arguing with a guy who wanted to return a watch. He swore he bought it at our store. I kept explaining that was impossible. I called a manager who says, just refund it with a watch that matches the price he says he paid for it. But the worst was how many times we took back obviously worn, dirty clothing like lingerie. We even took back things we didn't even sell. This pissed me off so much. OMG. I used to work at Home Depot and the returns desk once had to accept a can of paint from a brand that is exclusively sold through a Lowe's. TBF, I worked at Lowe's and we got people returning Home Depot stuff all the time. Maybe the store managers should do hostage swaps under some sort of gentleman's agreement. Why can't this shit happen to me? I try returning shit unused with a receipt, and they always give me a hard time. Specifically because of assholes like the one this thread is talking about. Any good thing will be ruined by assholes. I bought film from Walmart once and when I went to put it in the camera I noticed it was already used. I was not pleased. Who returns film? Used film? I used to work at Best Buy. This guy came in and returned a laptop saying that the box had some old laptop in it. He was yelling and screaming that we don't know how to do business. Manager gave him full refund. We started to check that old laptop he brought in. It won't turn on. Looks like the motherboard was toast. We pulled the hard drive out and started checking the data. Hard drive was completely fine with everything on it. We started looking for the clues and found the pictures of the guy who returned the laptop. It was his old machine. We had all his info. Manager called him and said he has 15 minutes to bring the new laptop back or he is calling police. That guy came in, dropped the laptop at front desk. Never saw him again in the store. The benefits of working in a store that specializes in electronics. Real hard scamming the people who can't check your hard drive. The lesson is, take the hard drive out before attempting the scam. Currently there is a shocking scam going on with disks. Data hoarder knows what's up. People buy external drive, remove HDD and replace with some old junk and return to store. It still works but instead of 8 TB you get 500 GB or whatever. Some people from the sub had a problem because they got unit with replaced disk, and store wouldn't believe them. Do you think somewhere like Best Buy would let you hook the external drive up to one of their display computers to check if you're getting what you're paying for before buying it? Yeah, most definitely. Anything returned like that would become open box, and if you ask one of the salespeople to double check for you, they should be more than willing to do so. Source: used to work there. Related story: I had a customer come in to do a return. She bought it at a different location, but had her receipt. Okay, cool. Start to ring it up. She points out she used a coupon. A physical paper coupon. And now she wants it back. She got mad when I explained that it was impossible for me to give her a piece of paper that she left in a different physical location. I had to walk her step by step through the fact that this physical piece of paper was at the other store, and she was pissed that I couldn't conjure one out of the air for her. I hate dealing with coupons sometimes. I had one that got mad at me because I wouldn't take her copied and pasted paper coupon. Like, that's illegal. I was working at Toys R Us about 5 years ago. I had someone try Google image searching coupons, and was confused why it didn't work. The coupon had expired 10 years prior. I had some guy bring a coupon in for some Zuzu Pets shit we didn't stock at our pop-up true. He slapped the coupon down, said he wanted to either be able to use this coupon on something, or he'd leave. I said goodbye and called for the next person in line because it was Black fucking Friday. Or he'd leave, I said goodbye. LMAO. Best way to deal with people making idle threats. Once a customer said we charge them for organic sweet potatoes instead of normal. It happens a lot, especially in self-serve, because people can't read. I was like, do you have the receipt? He said number. I was like, do you have the potatoes? He had already eaten them and I had no response. Did he realize the problem after he ate them, and they tasted organic and more expensive? My GF works at a Whole Foods and shit like this happens all the time. People will come back with 2-week-old produce and return it because it's spoiled. What? I can't return my non-existent shoes. This is your fault, cashier. Simple solution. Pay her for the non-existent shoes with non-existent money. I had a customer come to purchase some stuff, and they had found a coupon from 3 years ago on Google Images for 50% off whole purchase. I told her I can't do that, and the only one we had going at the time was not viable for her purchase. She yelled stupid loud, stormed out cursing, and I felt good. She emailed corporate, and I got in trouble for making her upset. I once had a lady come in and try to price match an ad that looked faded and had weird graphics. I told her I needed to see the date on it and she got mad. Turns out it was faded and had weird graphics because it was over a decade old. She threatened to sue my manager and I for discrimination, and then for trashing her antique because we threw the ad out. I don't miss retail. I worked in a grocery store and sometimes older people would bring in coupons clipped from decades old magazines with no expiration dates. They were totally valid coupons though, just from a time before companies printed expiration dates on coupons. My manager used to keep those for an art project she had on the counting office wall. It was kind of a neat historical collage. I think the oldest one she had was from the 40s maybe. The lady that used it said she'd found it in her mom's old Bible. Lol. Fuck corporate. Seriously, you want me to make sure you don't lose money, or give people shit for stupid cheap to keep them coming and ripping you off? If it's choice B then whatever, LMAO. Their loss. At my old job, they used to have sales pretty often and would also give out coupons for specific dates. For Boxing Day, they had a 30% off sale and we'd also given out coupons that would start the next day. Lady comes in on Boxing Day and we worked out that she'd get more of a deal if she used the coupon instead. So I offered to hold her items for her. I explicitly told her that she wouldn't be able to get the 30% off and she decided to use the coupon instead. She comes back the next day, goes to cash to purchase her items and gets angry because they wouldn't give her both the 30% off and let her use the coupon. She told the cashier that the person she'd spoken to the day before had told her she could do that. Sees me, and says it was that girl who told me. I went to cash to speak to her. I was a key holder at the time, and her story changed about 3 times through the whole thing. First she said that I told her she could combine the discounts. Then she said that I never told her she couldn't combine the discounts. And then finally it was, well, I don't understand why I'm not able to do this. Another manager came over to help sort it out and as I walked away I heard her saying that I was a liar. Now, I work at Sephora and we always get people trying to return fake products. My favorite one was when someone returned a face mask but had put a can of tuna in the box instead of the actual face mask. I used to work at Sephora and the amount of people that would try to return mostly empty gift sets was absurd. The look on their face when you would ask where all the products were was always priceless. I feel bad even returning something I'd used that broke me out to hell and back. Some people just have no shame. I once forgot to include a charger when I returned something a few years back. I still think about it every now and then. How these people live is just beyond impossible to understand. I returned a foundation to MAC that had looked the correct color in the store, but when I had it on in daylight it was very obviously not the correct color. I felt terrible because I'd agreed to it and even tested in store. It just didn't hold up the same under natural light. If it hasn't looked really bad, I probably would have just sucked it up and looked for a bronzer that would balance it out or something. I got a pocket full of drumsticks. I got a fowl and I know that it's all mine. Oh woo oh, give me a leg. A chicken leg. I once bought a shampoo and conditioner. Stuff I used previously and knew how it smelled looked. First time I go to use it. Stuff comes out runny and green and smells apple. Why? I went back to return the shampoo. Conditioner was fine. After a little resistance, which I get. I used to work retail as well and know how fucked up some people are. We deduced that someone emptied the bottle of the actual product and refilled it with, we were 97% sure, Suave green apple shampoo. The girl even double checked my exchange bottle to make sure it was the actual product, then pulled the other bottles to check as well. The lengths some assholes will go. Reminds me of another AskReddit thread where a commenter bought an opaque bottle of vitamins which turned out to have uncooked pasta inside it. What's wrong with some vitamin P? Damn, this is so disappointing. People suck. I worked at a Home Depot for a summer. People will use paint and then refill the can with water and try to return it. I would always check and their faces were the best. They'd usually blame their kids. I worked at Ulta and someone tried to return the big liter bottles of shampoo and conditioner, but they had filled them with water and froze them. The temperature and condensation was a dead giveaway, so we refused to return their items. They proceeded to call corporate to complain and got a $100 gift certificate, and then we got bitched at. Why freeze them though? I guess so we wouldn't feel the water sloshing around. They could have filled them to the top without any air in the bottle, which they would have probably gotten away with, or filled it with like, cheap Dollar Tree shampoo. I've returned only a couple things and they open it up completely to make sure it was the right product. Some people are so dumb. I was working in a betting shop during the 2014 Football World Cup. We had this one really awful customer, must have been in his 80s and always wildly inappropriate, asking what color my underwear was. Did I need someone to keep me warm tonight etc. But I couldn't do anything as the higher ups wanted to squeeze money from him. Anyway, the night before the final match he comes in and tells me he wants to bet on Germany to win. I spent about 10 minutes explaining to him that as it was the final he could no longer have a broad bet like that. Instead he'd have to choose between a 90-minute win or winning in extra time, on penalties etc. I showed him the odds for all of the different bets and he ended up choosing the 90-minute win. I put the bet through for him and off he went into the night to be creepy somewhere else. The match plays out and of course Germany wins in extra time. The next day a named creepy dude comes in grinning from ear to ear and telling me how he's a winner. Oh boy. Again I have to explain to him that his bet isn't valid as he predicted they'd win before 90 minutes, and they hadn't. Dude flies into a rage about how I'm a money grabbing slut who's jealous of his riches and I have to pay him out or he'll call the police. I tell him to leave my store or I'll call them myself. He complies. A few days later I come back from my lunch break to see him ranting at my cashier. I ask what the problem is and he throws me his bet slip for the World Cup. Only now he's written extra time on it in pen and is trying to get my less experienced staff member to pay him out. I tell him that when we scan bets the computer takes an image of it. Obviously the slip he has given to us has been altered as it doesn't match what's on the screen. I even turned the computer to show him, and that counts as fraud. Again. He leaves spouting nonsense about how women shouldn't be working anyway because they can't count or read. Next week I get told I have to go to a meeting as I've had a complaint filed against me by a customer. The day of the meeting rolls around and I'm greeted by my area manager, security director and creepy dude. He had phoned the customer line and said I'd refused to pay his bet and taken the money for myself. We ended up bringing up the CCTV of the night he originally placed the bet, complete with audio, to prove without a shadow of doubt that he was in the wrong. Dude won't accept this and starts screaming that we're all thieves. We faked the video, and threatening to get a lawyer. Security director escorts him off the premises and he is banned from all of our chains indefinitely. The kicker is, if his bet had won it would have been a whopping £55. TL. Dr. old dude is creepy. refuses to accept that his bet isn't a winner, makes threats and escalates to head office, is banned from all stores. Edit. Writing at 4 AM is hard. Perhaps your jealousy of his riches clouded your memory. Women shouldn't be working because they can't count or read. Hahaha. Thank you for the laugh op. Not sure if it qualifies as a scam or not. Probably just attempted shoplifting. When I was working as an electronics cashier, I asked a woman if she needed help buying a TV. She said no thanks, and placed a smart TV into her cart. I asked her if she wanted to make the purchase at electronics, and she said she wanted to pick up a couple more things in electronics. I went to help another customer when I realized the woman was rushing towards the front of the store with a TV. I immediately radioed loss prevention that someone was trying to run out with a TV, and they stopped her at the door. Her immediate defense was, I paid for this in electronics. I just left the receipt in my car. I have no idea how that made logical sense in her mind, since of course she couldn't have the receipt in her car if she just bought the TV in electronics. I'd like to return this unopened pack of cigarettes I purchased earlier today at your establishment. Might be paraphrasing a little bit. I open the store every day, hadn't seen this dude once that day. Looked at his cigarettes. It's a brand we don't carry. Asked him for a receipt to confirm he purchased them here, but he obviously didn't have one. That's fine. If you can just tell me what time you were in here today, I can look it up on our cameras to confirm your purchase. My god, the backpedaling and stuttering. I grabbed his cigarette pack and fake examined them. Wait a moment sir, are you sure you purchased these at this store? I don't think we carry this brand. He took the cigarettes back, came up with something about his brother must have yada yada, and then he walked out. A tobacco store in town sells some of the brands we carry at a much cheaper price, so people like to try and do returns at our store to make a quick buck. We generally don't take any returns on tobacco, but this guy didn't even scope out his mark. Edit. Resident of Indiana. Couldn't find anything pertaining to the legality of tobacco returns in my state. If it helps, anytime the ATF drops in for a checkup, the only question we get asked is if we sell individual cigarettes. Outside of that, I've worked a few retail jobs where tobacco was sold and I wasn't told at any of them that tobacco returns were illegal. I'm assuming it's more individual store policy on whether or not they take returns. And I've worked retail long enough to see how an employee would tell someone it's illegal, rather than against store policy, just to help avoid an argument. Not to say it might not be illegal in other states, just that I don't think it is in mine. I had a lady try to return a pack of smokes that she admitted she bought from another gas station. She wanted Newports. They gave her Newport Lights. It wasn't a malicious thing though, she just genuinely didn't know you couldn't do that. If it was another one of the same chain, I could see that being possible. Maybe. Tobacco products are generally not returnable in most cases, obvious exception being like, I bought these 20 minutes ago, they're not what my wife wanted, they're unopened. Can I get the right ones? And usually, I'll remember the guest too, so I'll do it. I had another case too where a regular guest, never any problems with him, buys 2 packs a day, came in with a pack he bought yesterday, that was opened and there was one missing and he said he got them like that. Normally, I wouldn't refund exchange those ones, but like I said, he's a regular and has never pulled this before, and hasn't since, so I believed him, and gave him an exchange. I think a coworker I had at the time, who was a real shitstin, took it out of the pack and hoped no one noticed. He was fired after he decided to go on a cocaine binge instead of working. Oh boy. Back in high school when I worked part-time at a KFC, there was this one fat man who would come in, order a 2-piece quarter pack, and then claim we forgot his chicken. Like, when we turned around to fetch his drink at the end of the order, he would open the box, take out the chicken pieces and hide them in his pockets. Hot chicken, right in his pockets. I got so fed up with everyone just giving him extra chicken all the time that I demanded he turned out his pockets one day when he tried to pull it, and wow, lo and behold, this guy has his pockets full of drumsticks. I don't get how people like this think they can use the same trick literally an unlimited amount of times at the same store. I heard a story once where someone had some convoluted way to get free things from a McDonald's by ordering 2 things, going there and complaining that they were the wrong 2, then getting them changed, then going back and complaining that they were wrong again, and so having the first original to given back to her, and she did this the same way over and over. Worked in a bottle shop. One afternoon a shader character entered and spent 10 minutes browsing the liquor section. I stayed at the checkout and watched him on the CCTV. He ended up shoving 2 bottles of Johnny Walker Blue down his pants and walked out. Store policy is not to confront shoplifters. That's what insurance is for. I called the police and burned the footage onto a DVD for them to collect. About an hour later the same guy returns with the bottles demanding a cash refund because he purchased the wrong type. Just as I was telling him I can't do a refund without a receipt, the police walked in to collect the footage. He left with them in handcuffs. You all didn't keep $200 bottles of whiskey behind the counter or in a locked case? I bought a bottle for my best friend's wedding and I had to get escorted by 2 people to open the case with the expensive shit in it. Johnny Blue is becoming pretty mainstream. A lot of bottle-los near me leave it on the shelf but with a security tag on it. I bounced between 5 stores near me to find the cheapest. 2 didn't even have it and would special order it for me if I wanted. I did not. In my home state all liquor is sold by the state, so you are never going to get a better deal somewhere else. Damn. Where do you live? At my liquor store they're like $350. Edit. For anybody wondering, I live in Iowa, US and I worked at that liquor store 5 years ago. Did prices severely decrease in that time? Well, it varies place to place. 10 years ago in Orlando it was $200, but my bar sold it for $90 a shot. Alaska it was $500. And now in Kansas it's $200, $300 depending. I've had it. It's good. Not $200 good though. $90 a shot. Jesus. Bar markup is insane. On New Year's Eve a few years ago I ordered a bottle of 30 for the table at a bar. The prices weren't listed, but at the liquor store this shit is like $10. They charge 90 I think. Broke college me was not happy with that bill. Same type of thing happened to us. As I was walking in for my shift, there was a car stopped right in front of the doors. Next thing I know, I'm walking up on a guy carrying about 10 pairs of shoes out of their boxes as he's running out of the store at full speed and basically Superman jumped into the car. They sped off and the appers were all kinda staring at each other going WTF just happened. Later on that night, dude came back wearing a pair of the shoes he stole and his hoodie still had one of our security tags on it, so he set off the alarm when he walked in. They followed him around for a bit. Eventually he made a run for the door and an apper grabbed the hoodie on his way out. Hoodie came off and dude kept running into the parking lot. We were almost at closing time anyway so they locked the doors behind him. Then this madman came back to beat on our glass doors to demand his hoodie back. He'd also inadvertently lost one shoe and he needed that back as well. We obviously refused and he called the cops. They were very amused with the situation when they got there. I don't think he went to jail though. This reads like surrealist literature. I had a guy try to return a phone case because I got the wrong one. No receipt of course, and when he said that I said stow what, he just walked out, briskly, then full sprinted away. He left the wrong case. LMAO, how fucking dumb can you be? You may end up being surprised on this one. I knew someone who worked in a wireless store, and some guy stole a phone case while wearing a mask. Problem was, he had just paid his bill at the kiosk. They called the alternate work number he had given them and asked the boss to please send the employee back with the case. He did so and apologized and left. I was working at a place that has soft serve as a part of the menu. I was working one day and a lady came up to the counter and said something along the lines of, "Hey, I'm really sorry my daughter dropped her ice cream and she's really sad about it. Do you think you could give me another?" I was about to then realized an important fact. The ice cream was broken that day and we weren't selling any. I looked back at her and told her that it must not be from us because of the machine. She turned bright red and mumbled, "Oh, then I guess it must be from Dairy Queen or something," and left quickly. Nice try, lady. I work at a movie theater. We have a $5 discount day. A customer comes over and starts telling me how she was there the prior day and that we had given them the wrong soda and her diabetic husband had drank it and suddenly had to go to the hospital to get medication to cure him. Several things wrong with that story. 1. That's not how diabetes works. You don't die from one sip of soda, and generally if you did, you'd have insulin to take. 2. The employee she had complained to in order to call me over had been the only concessionist the prior day and somehow she failed to identify him when I asked her who it was. I asked her for a ticket stubs or proof of purchase, and she came up with nothing. I went to the attendants for the prior day and pulled the report for the movie they claimed to have saw. To my delight, the showtime they claimed to have seen had 0 tickets sold to it. I printed the report and went back to meet them. Yay, Sarah, looks like there were 0 tickets sold to that showtime, and I showed her the report. She then tried to say we sold her tickets to the wrong movie. I told her that was impossible because then she would have been in the wrong auditorium. She had no response to that. Then she spluttered that she guessed she would just go buy tickets, and I said yay, I guess so. She left. I worked at a Jewel many years ago, opening shift as a cashier. A man comes through with 24 packs of Pepsi. It's opening shift, so at that time we count our registers and confirm they've got the correct opening cash. We didn't carry too much cash, and we all know how much is in the drawer to start. He ends up paying with a $100 bill for these sodas. I counted back his change with mostly 20s, all the 20s I had just counted. There was no more 20s I could have given him, and I don't know how he did this, but he shuffled them in his hand, and showed me that I supposedly shortchanged him. Now, I knew immediately that he was a piece of shit. My store wasn't shitty, so I told him that I would call a manager over and have them double check the register. The manager came, counted down the register and explained that the drawer was balanced, which means I didn't shortchange anybody. But, if for whatever reason the drawer turned up $20 over at night, we could give him a call. The manager tries to take his info down and he asks for his name, and the guy thinks about it and says Steve Bush. Fuck you, Steve Bush. You're a sack of lying shit who tries to scam 16-year-olds out of $20. Edit to at, yes, I'm well aware that money isn't my money, but I took that as a personal offense. When I left that day I called my now husband, mad as hell. I felt angry because he must have assumed I looked like an idiot that would hand him extra money, or something of that nature. Also, he can't actually scam Jewel without scamming me first. Just because it isn't my money didn't mean he didn't try to scam me out of $20. We are responsible for how much money we lose. Wow, this happened to a lot of you. I didn't realize how common this was. People are shit. Ha, lol. This is an extremely common scam. I would be shocked if any retail worker didn't have it happen to them at least once. Someone tried this on me once. What they didn't expect is that when I was in elementary school I was taught how to count back change. A very useful skill, especially if you don't have the register doing math for you. And I had a habit of showing the cash over the counter and doing the count back out loud. It wasn't store policy to do this, and my manager had noticed it was something I did and had commented on it because she thought it was great. Well, this middle-aged woman tried to pull this scam on me. I had been on register during a Canadian holiday. We were 20 minutes south of the border in the US, but kept track because we'd get slammed, and counted back her change. She pulled the OU, gave me 2 5s instead of a 20 and a 5. My manager had jumped on the other till at some point earlier, and I hear her straight up yell, "Nope, he counted that back to you," out loud, and I heard it and you heard it. Don't even try that. The customer turned bright red and scampered away. It was awesome. I've had iterations of this happen before, too. I just remember it very vividly. The guy just looked like a jag-off, morbidly obese, hadn't shaved in forever, wearing real short shorts and a stained t-shirt. You never know what people are going through. So when he came by I assumed he was extraordinarily depressed, and maybe that's why he looked so gross. Nope, just a lazy asshole. I'm not usually on register, but when the store I used to work, PetSmart, at first opened, they would send out coupons to specific people if they had pet perks and an email. Well, someone shared their coupon online, which was for a free bag of dog food. What preceded was a mass of people coming in the next few weeks attempting, and succeeding, to redeem the coupon, as we didn't want to start off on the wrong foot after newly opening. Anyway, I get put on register and this woman comes through with 12 bags of dog food and 12 coupons. We can't actually do that on the same purchase, and usually when someone does that, having 2 coupons, we just do 2 different transactions. It's whatever, but this lady has 12 and I'm lazy, so I call my manager over to deal with it. The manager tries to explain to the woman that the coupons aren't technically valid as it's for a specific person for 1 bag. Woman keeps pushing on the fact that she physically has the coupons so they must work and acts like she doesn't understand why they won't. Eventually manager says, "You know what? We'll do it but only for 6 bags." Woman throws a fit and leaves the entire cart. Coulda got 6 bags free but nope. Manager said she'd seen the woman doing the exact same thing at Dollar General the day before. Second story, and not me but same store. Occasionally we had a spokesperson for a few brands of dog food come in. Usually weekly that would set up a booth at our store, but would do the same with other stores in the area. We had a coupon come out where you could get a $15 box of wet cat food, about 16 cans, for free, or pay the difference. She came through with a $30 box, and the cashier caught it and said, "Well, you have to pay the difference or get a box that costs $15. The woman was like, "Oh, no, all the other stores let me have it for free. You can do it too." Cashier says, "Nope, it's not how we do it here. You'll have to pay the difference or buy cheaper." The woman demands the manager and gets the GM, who backs the cashier up. Difference or cheaper. Woman gets huffy and goes and grabs a cheaper box, $25, and expects the cashier to free it out. Cashier is like, "Lol, nope." I guess the woman is either frustrated or embarrassed at this point, because when cashier points out difference or cheaper, she gets huffy again and will pay the damn difference. Edit. I forgot to mention, the second lady also brought in previous receipts from other stores to prove that they'd freed out more expensive food. I'm thinking one store did it, either on purpose or accident, and since she has the receipt she can force them because the other stores did it. Woman throws a fit and leaves the entire cart. Coulda got 6 bags free but nope. Manager said she'd seen the woman doing the exact same thing at Dollar General the day before. Why do I get the feeling she didn't even have a dog and was gonna try to run some racket to sell them all for like half the normal price? 1. This projector is going to be used at our church. Can we get a discount? 2. This flat screen TV is going to be used at our church. Can you waive the taxes? 3. This for church. Discount? What would Jesus pay? In before our choosing because leaks. It's for a church, honey. Next. Worked at Arby's as a teenager. This was around 1990. A guy comes in, orders a sandwich and fries, and wants to pay with a check. This being the olden days, people paid with check all the time. But this guy tries to tell me it's easier for the bank if he makes it out to himself instead of to Arby's because, well, he fired off some convoluted, off-the-cuff bullshit designed to gallop me into buying the story. I was young and naive, but not that naive. He got mad when I denied him, called me stupid. I asked if he'd like to talk to the manager and he agreed. 3 minutes later my manager is giving the guy stink eye and the dude leaves with no sandwich. Nice try, asshole. I had a customer try to pay with a check using an ID that was very obviously made of paper. When I wouldn't accept it, she tried to get her boyfriend to fight me. He laughed and awkwardly walked out of the store, leaving her there, crying now. From the embarrassment of failure, I guess. Edit. I understand that some states issue paper temporary licenses. Mine does too. This was clearly not that. Good on the dude for making the right judgment call. Movie theater worker here as well. This same situation happened to me too. We received a call yesterday from a guest who had to leave because of a group of guys yelling and hurling insults at her and her friends, throwing popcorn and kicking her seats. She claimed that she just left, didn't want to cause a scene and wasn't going to speak to the manager. Well, since this has happened to me in the past with scammers, I ask the basic question is, do you have your tickets and I'll just give you a pass. Of course she paid only in cash. Didn't have anything else that showed she was here. She didn't know where she was sitting and got her movie show time wrong twice. My bullshit detector went into overdrive, but I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt and still tried to figure anything out that proved she was here, when she just kept on insisting it wasn't about the money and that a few free tickets and call it even. I had enough. I told her that since she didn't have her tickets and the fact that she did talk to anyone after the movie, there wasn't too much I can do. Sorry. The kicker was we have brand new recliners, and when she kept insisting they were kicking her seats, I told her that wasn't possible since there's about a 2 feet gap from the back of the seat and a fully reclined chair. She got flustered and just said she couldn't possibly explain how they did it. To just trust her work. Not likely. I get this call literally all the time. Same situation and everything. I got something similar last week. claims her baby fell and hit his head and the babysitter called and they had to leave. Then when I asked her for proof of purchase she claimed she lost her wallet. I've been in the industry so long that I don't even bother trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. If they have no proof of purchase I tell them to fuck off, politely, and then 69 the phone number. I also pretend to be concerned in the beginning to get their fake names and write them down. Usually after I start texting out to my other theater friends to let them know the scammers are at it again. It was the second call of the week and other caller got passes from someone else. I'm sure we're all in cahoots. Nothing pisses me off more when they start saying someone was in their party was disabled and were being made fun, assuming it's an automatic free score. People suck. Absolutely. We have a policy in place that no tickets proof of purchase means nothing we can do about it to prevent that. It sucks for people who actually have real issues, but these assholes have ruined it for everyone. And yay, there's a whole ring of people that do it. To my delight the showtime they claimed to have seen had 0 tickets sold to it. Do they still play the movie? Generally after 20 minutes the movie will turn itself off to save lamp hours. There isn't. Projectionists haven't been a thing for a while. Why does this make me sad? Nope, everything is automated, runs off of macros and playlists. Sometimes there are features we have to start manually, fathom events, but that's because they run on a different system, literally a DVR. Telling me she had a voucher for 50% off in her emails, but she didn't have a copy with her. I was like, no hun. Nice try. Do you work at Michael's by any chance? I just googled a coupon while standing in line. Good old Michael's. No, I'm in the UK. We don't have Michaela here. I work in a department store restaurant. I know we don't do vouchers of this kind. This shit, all day. You don't have an extra one lying around? No we don't. There was a pizza place in my college town that gave out coupons at the beginning of the year. When you called to order, if you said you had a coupon and it sounded reasonable, they'd just do it. The delivery people never collected them. Got a lot of buy one get one free pizzas. When I worked on a checkout, a woman pulled a barcode label from a container of $4 tinned fruit and stuck it over the barcode of a $25 container of medjool dates. She pretended that she didn't do it. Another time a man carried a $30 bag of dog food the customer service counter without paying for it and asked for a refund. My manager gave it to him even though we both knew he had stole it while we watched him. Oh, and another time a group of people were using fake credit cards to steal. Not sure exactly how it worked, but they ended up typing in a different card number into the VFTPOS terminal while another dude tried to distract you. These guys were super friendly and chatty and probably thought I was young and dumb, but I caught them trying to take off with about $500 worth of groceries. They were all like, just let us go and get some cash out. We'll be back soon to pay. They never returned and my manager gave me a box of chocolates for picking up on it. Proudest moment of my retail career. Former worker, name dropping the owner's name while saying everything was wrong and they were going to call him personally and were doing this super douchebaggy exaggerated phone button push thing. Surprise surprise, they didn't know him. Passed it off as well, he isn't answering with that voice that comes from a nose a mile high. I work at an Italian deli specialty market. It's family owned and has a super tight-knit cast of employees. It's also in a rougher part of town. One day, a presumably homeless woman came into the store. No big deal. We're by the shelter and a lot of the homeless folks are friendly and just getting something nice to eat. However, this lady was clearly out of her mind. Whether it was drugs or mental illness wasn't clear. Honestly, probably both. She was in the store for an hour just harassing employees and customers. Eventually, the owner, the Italian man after which the store is named, had to intervene. He firmly asked the lady to leave, but she had a surprising response. "Oh, it's okay. I work here." Imagine the surprise on the owner's face. He certainly didn't remember hiring her. Dumbfounded, he told her that was impossible, since he's in charge of the hiring. To which she responded, "Oh, are you hiring? Honestly, I've got to respect a good gambit." Unfortunately for her, it didn't seem to pan out. I don't have any new co-workers yet. Worked at Aldi, which has a return policy where you get your money back and get to pick an item of equal or lesser value. One customer routinely returned a gallon of milk with just a quarter remaining, claiming it was rancid. He'd then get a new gallon and his money back. This went on almost daily for 2 weeks until the DM finally put his foot down. Aldi will do anything to please the customer. It's insane. Not quite. Brought a heater from there. Product number was keyed in wrong, so I was charged $100 instead of $60. They were the only place this brand was sold to. Took it back to the same woman I brought it from about 2 hours ago, and she often serves me, so we are friendly enough. She asks about my cats by name. She tried to say she had never seen me before. I was asking to speak to a manager or a supervisor. She kept refusing. Next thing I know, manager walks up behind me, must have heard what I was saying, and goes, "Time on the receipt. You're not the only one where they got a number wrong and have been overcharged. Just need to look at the CCTV to confirm." I swore that woman was trying to use the force to cave my skull in. As her manager noted, I was the 4th person by 11 AM today to have this issue with her register, and only her register. Makes me wonder if she was trying to scam people out of $30 to pocket it or some shit later, especially as I wasn't the first to go in that day and complain. It was only her register that was overcharging. She pretended not to know you when you complained, even though you're friendly, gave you dirty looks, and she was refusing to let you see a manager? Yeah, she was skimming those transactions. I'm a customer service manager at my store, and have been for 2 years, so I'm not exactly wet behind the ears. Every once in a while, I get a call from someone claiming to be NCR, the company who repairs our registers. They always start the same. "We've been getting an error message from your store that your money services registers are out of sync." Usually I just say nice try and hang up. However, one night the store was dead. I was ahead on my closing stuff. I got the call. I pretended to be dumb, and played along, telling him I was doing what he said, stupid stuff that doesn't actually do anything. Reset the pin pad, reboot the register, type in a code that prints a slip. So after about 10 minutes, I finally break the news to him that I knew it was a scam. He goes off yelling, "I told your ass we're updating the fucking registers, you tucking dumbers." Not traditional retail, but had a client swear she did not receive 2 packages from me and was refusing to pay the invoice for the second package from more than 6 months prior. I knew she was lying, but she was extremely rude and insistent. I was able to go back on all records and was able to find both a photo of the first package on her front doorstep. Super lucky, as that's not our normal delivery procedure to have photographed evidence, and a signature of receipt for the second one with her name very clearly signed. Dated 4 days later, I emailed the evidence and never heard back from her again. Not even an apology email or phone call, which just confirmed she knew she was lying. They cut off a tag off an expensive jacket. I saw them do this. Walked up to me and tried to return it. Security showed them the doors. This probably doesn't really count as a scam, but had a teenage boy come into the store and say he had no money but needed condoms desperately for tonight or he wouldn't lose his virginity. I really felt for the dude, so I ended up buying him some myself. You know, I'd do the same thing. You were supporting safe sex. I'll buy them for you on one condition. Think of me when you're using them. Best part is, they probably would whether they wanted to or not. This reminds me of the time I was working at a supermarket and a teenage boy came in looking frazzled and breathlessly asked where the pregnancy tests are. I told him they're on the shelf underneath the condoms. He said he didn't know where they were. Without thinking I replied, "Well, I guess that should have been obvious." Luckily for me, he laughed really hard after the initial moment of shock. Jesus Christ, that kid had, or was about to start, a family. No way that's a scam. Just plain old desperation. You are a true bro. That's cute. At least in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, retailers get full credit if they are able to recover empty condom boxes where the contents have been stolen. You're a good person. I work at a clothing store, and about a year ago I had a very drunk 50-plus-year-old lady come through my line. After ringing up her $100 plus worth of clothes, she then began to hit on me and insinuate that she could work for the free clothes, if you get what I mean. That was the quickest nope I have ever said in my life. Would not recommend lol. Lure her to the bathroom. Tell her to wait and come back with mop, bucket and gloves. Used to work customer service at a hardware store. You get so jaded by junkies trying to return stolen items, I just started handing out refunds based on how good the stories were. Your dad with dementia bought circuit breakers every single day and recently died? Refund. You don't need these commercial sized copper elbows because you bought too many for your residential plumbing project. Nah. The dementia thing is sadly realistic. My uncle recently died of Lewy body dementia, and he kept on buying tools and fishing gear. It made him happy. My auntie would collect them once they got home and put them away to return later. But you couldn't stop him because he would get so angry if he was told he couldn't. It was Target. I'm not sure if that was particularly limited to that store, but they were very lax about a lot of things that went on there. It really pissed me off because I was saving them and also saving this unknown woman from people using her money. I was let go anyway, and while I could have used another job at the time, I was fine without it. Felt great not to have to work for them anymore. My grandmother does almost the same thing. That's so strange. I didn't know it was a common feature of dementia. Luckily she's been shopping at the nearest store for 30 years and the two employees know her and her situation. She buys all sorts of weird things and her husband brings them all back the next day. Happens a few times a month. If you don't do anything, she will eventually accumulate dozens of cans of house paint in random colors, a room full of saucepans, and 10 pillows for every person she's ever met. Had a guy try to return 2 Sega CD games for cash. Problem was they were wrapped in saran wrap, and then had the gall to exchange them for properly wrapped games so he could go across the street to Walmart and return them for cash there. Him and his buddy must have really needed beer and weed money. Also have seen people try on new shoes, put the old ones in the box, and walk out with the new ones. Had an old man act like he was pulling a gun out of his waist just to get away from loss prevention. And one of my favorites, had the two women grab a bag from luggage and put all of the rolls of film in the bag, then try to ditch the bag because we were following them. Also have seen people try on new shoes, put the old ones in the box, and walk out with the new ones. This happens so much. People think they are entitled to new shoes when their old ones wear out. Apparently, many of them are people that don't shoplift anything else. Worst I saw was a pair of white DC shoes that had gotten just a little dirty, so they left them and stole a pair of $20 shoes. If you don't know, DC shoes are $50 minus $100 shoes, at least. I guess the price is meaningless if you're doing this constantly. You can just exchange your $20 shoes for whatever the hell you want to try on next time. As you said, it's not like they're selling the shoes or anything. Somehow they got it into their heads the weird idea that stealing shoes is okay. I worked for my mom-in-law at a home decor store. I had an older woman come in and when I rang her up she said she got a discount because she was the owner's mom. My immediate reaction was to yell, "Grandma," and throw my arms out like I wanted a hug. She left very quickly. BTW, it was not my grandma-in-law. I've had 2 instances of a customer trying to pull a scam on me. The first one, I had a young customer come in, chose one of the most expensive items we had, and to pay with it he first gave me $200 cash and then said he had his father's card. We don't require any ID when you're paying with card, obviously, but we do have to take the card off you and do it ourselves. I did this, he complained, but gave it to me. No surprises, it didn't work. He waived it once for the maximum non-pin amount, tried it again and it didn't work. He said he had the PIN code written down so he could insert it. It didn't work with any of the accounts on the card. He called his dad to ask but he didn't pick up, which he did in front of me and I could see his phone when brought it up to his ear and it was open on the main screen. Nothing had been dialed. He tried everything for about half an hour. Nothing worked. He said he's meeting his dad soon anyway so he'll come back. I refunded all the money. Never saw him again. And X200B. Another one isn't as bad. But I had a customer switch the sale tag from an item on sale to an item not on sale that he wanted, but our payment system requires a specific code to enter to apply a discount, and that code does not work for verified SKUs. He ended up willingly paying full price anyway, and X200B. Our store's refund policy states that if you're unhappy with your purchase, you can refund it to any store in the state. We had a couple who would steal a pair from one store, buy the same from another, and refund the stolen pair to a third store. They did this for months. They were caught by one of our staff members because the boyfriend brought up the receipt on his phone for the return because the score they were trying to refund didn't match what their receipt in the system said. While our staff member was reading it, he got a text that popped up at the top that read, "Tell her to move to the side so I can open the cabinet." When I worked at the service desk of a local grocery store, we had this lady who was super skinny and wore sunglasses and long sleeves all the time. One day she came in with a friend and tried to return beauty items. We didn't have a beauty makeup section, and claimed she had no receipts due to short-term memory loss. It was so hard not to laugh in her face. She had attempted to return things this way numerous times. We all knew what she was doing. Maybe she couldn't remember that she had tried that before. Customer shows me a coupon on his phone. Several problems with this. It's against corporate policy to scan coupons off the phone. There's a sheet of paper taped to the counter with all of the rules, and it's like the sixth one on it when my kowtowing a smug shopper manager scanned the stupid fucking thing anyways. The system rejected the coupon, saying that the coupon wasn't issued to him. The offer that the coupon was for was different than the offer shown on his phone. There was an Instagram stamp on the coupon on his phone. Also, customer tries to return some makeup without a receipt. I look it over and tell her I can't return it. She tries to say that we have to since we sell it here and whatnot. I tell her I can't return it because it has a security label from the grocery store that's 5 miles down the road. She books it out and leaves said makeup behind. You work at CVS, don't you? I had someone try to return 2 bottles of laundry detergent. She dropped them off at the counter and said she didn't like that brand. She walks off to do her shopping. I wonder how it smells, so I open the detergent and smell it. It's water. Both of these jugs are filled with warm water. During the exchange she tries to claim they were like that when she bought them. I explain I can't return them and she will have to talk to the day manager. Boss lady who has final say. A friend of mine bought a giant bottle of laundry detergent that turned out to be water. He was so perplexed when he got it home and tried to wash his clothes. Someone must have bought it, filled it with water and returned it, and obviously it wasn't checked. Luckily he was able to exchange it at the store with no questions asked, but a lot of laughs all around. I work at a convenience store, and we sell phone chargers for exorbitant prices because they prey on the desperate who need a charger right now. People steal these chargers all the time and try to bring them back for a refund. We don't take them back without a receipt with our store address on it anymore because this is such a common occurrence. I also had a guy steal a fidget spinner. I watched him do it from the aisle and try to bring it back for the whole refund of $6. Not exactly a scam, but 2-ish years ago I had a customer try to use a coupon from 2011. His excuse was that he'd been on the road a lot and didn't get a chance to use it. Tried to argue with me and demanded the manager, who, no surprise, said there was nothing we could do, and he finally backed down. Customer came in for her 1-hour facial appointment to try our skincare brand in a department store. It was $75, or you could purchase products to that value or above. She came out from her facial, pampered, requested the whole range, then explained she had left her credit card in her bag, which she had left in the car. She quickly said, "I'll be back in 5, and never returned. We cottoned on pretty quickly, but she had disappeared, and the phone number she had given us was fake. I worked at a place that sold timber, roofing, iron, etc. Once that morning this guy comes in and wants a couple of bags of cement, so I ring up the sale, and then go to load up the order. He tells me not to worry, and that he will do it, so I explain that it is my job to do it. Then when I reached for the first one he stands between me and the bag, so again I insist that I have to load the concrete. It isn't an option. At this point he gets quite aggressive with yelling and arm waving, etc. So I go inside to find the boss, and just as we come back out he reaches down, goes to pick up the bag, and throws his back out. He is writhing around on the floor for a while, then demands an ambulance, and tells my boss that I refused to help him load the bags and now he is going to sue us for millions. What he didn't know is that a lot of people tried to steal the cement, so there were 2 security cameras pointing right at him the whole time, recording everything he said and did, including a long discussion with his wife about how we would pay him a stack of cash to keep this out of court and so on. The company didn't say a word about the tapes until just before we had to be in court, to make sure that he spent as much money on his lawyer as possible. I once had a dude try to score a free iPhone. He came into the department I worked in, and started describing this big iPhone to us. saying he lost it in here earlier. No other details were given, like phone case, or specific color, just an iPhone. Further questions were asked about where he thinks he might have left it in here, and he just went quiet and said, "It's fine. Actually, maybe somebody else has it," and left. Our opinion is he knew that sometimes stores will keep people's phones that they find until the owners come back and then they hand over the phone. He wanted to score a free iPhone. My son actually lost his phone in an arcade restaurant type place, and the cashier had it in her drawer in Lost and Found. She wouldn't give us the phone until he told her what was on the lock screen to verify it was his. I thought that was a pretty good thing to do. I worked at Best Buy in the late 90s when I was in HS, and a guy set off the alarm when he was leaving, and it turned out he had like 8 CDs in his pockets which he claimed that he had bought at the mall across the street before he came to Best Buy, and it must have been his house arrest anklet that had set off the alarm. I used to be a manager at a retail pharmacy for one of the bigger national chains. We had a customer try to trick us into giving him 5 cartons of cigarettes for free. He'd planted a handwritten note at the front register when the cashier had her back turned. Then he tried to convince her that he'd talked to a manager and there would be some cigarettes waiting for him, that his wife had bought them and left them, something like that. And the worst part is that I'm pretty sure the cashier would have fallen for it, except she didn't notice the note and I got to it first. IMG webpage. The sketchiest part of that note is the end where it says to give the note to the customer. Had a young guy trying to buy alcohol once try to use his girlfriend's ultrasound as it. Tried to tell him that you don't have to be over 18 to get pregnant. In the end I just pointed at the poster that showed the approved forms of it we could accept and told him that ultrasounds weren't on it. So many people seem to forget their license at home. Well, go get it, buddy. You won't get a beer until I see it. Customer returned a fake ring for $100. They had a real receipt that physically described the ring they brought in. I didn't recognize it, even checked for it, but ultimately accepted the return because it seemed legit. What they did was buy a real ring, or obtain a real receipt some other way, then buy a fake $5 ring that matched the description on the real receipt. Return fake ring, get cash. Actually pretty smart. I was working at Buckle for a while in college. They offer 10% military discount with photo it. Lady comes to my register on Black Friday with an alleged photocopy of her husband's DD-214. I kindly told her that would not be accepted and she was not eligible for a discount unless she could produce dependented on an official card. She was pissed. I gave 0 fucks. Guess who paid full price? If her husband is in the military they issue spousal cards in order to access things like the base operated shops. I had one as a dependent and my mother still has hers though my father is retired. If she was really married to a military member she would have her own card. I know lol. I'm active military now and was in the guard at the time of said incident. All dependents over age 10 are required to have official military ID in order to receive privileges benefits. I worked at a corporate supermarket here in Australia as a front-end supervisor a few years ago. This particular night though I was just a pleb working the smoke shop, or service desk, and a woman approached the counter wanting to make a return. It is important to mention that she had seen better days. She was in her early to mid-30s, tall, skinny and just your typical Aussie bogan type. The items she wanted to return were ink cartridges. From memory it was about 3 or 4. I did the usual procedure of asking for a receipt and she told me she had phoned earlier that day and spoke to someone who said she didn't need one. Red flag number 1. She explained her story about how they were the wrong ones and that she just wanted to refund them as she didn't need them anymore. Fair enough. Maybe she bought other cartridges from somewhere else. I asked her if she knew who she spoke with, as I would then be able to confirm with them and get the process started. I wasn't going to discredit her in the beginning and gave her the benefit of the doubt, and there may have been more to the story than I knew, such as a manager pre-approving it etc. But we generally left notes about everything and this was not mentioned, so it was already starting to become suspicious. Of course, she didn't recall the name. Okay fine. I start the process anyway as we did sell this particular brand, but upon scanning all of them, none of them came up in our system. Not one. I tried once more before explaining the situation and then all hell broke loose. She accused me of lying and telling me that we all don't know how to do our jobs because she bought them here no less than a few days prior. Red flag number 2. something would not be discontinued so quickly, especially something that sells as much as ink cartridges. We asked her if she can recall the day or prove she purchased them from our store from her bank account because we can then bring the receipt up from the back end. She then ranted about paying in cash and not remembering the day exactly. At this point, I had involved the supervisor because it was escalating to that point anyway, who explained the same thing I had to her, which was that we wouldn't be able to process a refund, especially in cash as per her request, because she could not prove she purchased them from us and they were not scanning in our system, which meant that we never stocked them in the first place. After much back and forth and her hurling abuse at us, we offered her store credit to the value of the original purchase, which I can't remember how we figured it out. I think it was just to the value of what similar stock we had, because she said all she wanted to do was some food shopping, which is why we offered her store credit. Then her mind changed from wanting to do shopping to wanting cash, because that is how she paid. After explaining 100 times that we weren't able to offer her cash, she agreed to the store credit. We processed it through for her and she went in store to do her supposed shopping. After about 20 minutes or so, she came back with gift cards, and only gift cards to the value of what was credited. Oh boy. Red flag number 3. You cannot purchase gift cards with store credit for obvious reasons. That was the end of it for her. She absolutely lost it at us and called us every name under the sun as she walked off with the store credit cards and threatening to call head office the next day. Our theory was, of course, drugs. Gift cards are apparently a common way of buying drugs according to my then supervisor. I tend to believe this because of her persistence in receiving the refund in cash, not having a receipt, the items not scanning. Plus it fit her profile. She was very sketchy, irritable, and looked like she was in need of 1,000 years of sleep. As it turns out, she did talk to another supervisor from day shift who actually told her that she could bring the items in and we would be able to assess the situation, which isn't a common practice but happened nonetheless. I guess she wasn't lying about everything. Edited to add a couple of extra points. I don't recall if anything ever came of her complaint, but we probably ended up giving her some sort of compensation. Corporate fucking sucks. I've been in and out of retail for 10 years, and one time at a part-time gig that I have a full-time job too. This couple, a man and a woman, came in, looking sketchy as all hell, definitely had a drug problem. They were scanning each and every register looking for gift cards, particularly those ones where they were prepaid like Visa or MasterCard. I knew their game. I've dealt with this before. The woman came to my register. Originally they wanted to go to self-checkout, but I told them they cannot purchase gift cards there. They can. I just wanted to catch them, lol. The woman comes up to me, purchases $400 worth of gift cards, and when it's time to pay, I ask her for her ID because she wants to use her credit card. The ID she had and who she was were two different people. The woman in the driver's license had no tattoos on her face. This woman had stars below her eye. I told her, this is not you. I will not sell these to you, and I will call the police. She booked it out of there. Unfortunately the man got away with it, because he had purchased his at another register before the woman came to me. And would you believe, I got in trouble for doing that? You got in trouble for stopping ID theft? I would not work for that company then. I used to work for a store that did trade-ins for old gaming systems. One day a man comes in trying to trade in his Xbox 360 to get credit for the, at the time, new Xbox One. We're pretty lax about the condition of the product. As long as it turns on, we'll take it. I'm talking to the man as I'm taking the Xbox box out of the bag he brought it in. He's pleasant. I open the box up and cockroaches just come crawling out. I almost drop it, and I tell the guy we can't accept this. Boy, does he get mad. He has the gall to ask where in our terms does it specifically say they can't accept this. The manager gets involved and he eventually leaves, only to come back the next day to try it on another employee. I radio the manager when I recognize him. Guy puts up a fuss again and the manager eventually tells him he'll give him the trading credit if he takes his bug-ridden machine with him and never brings it back. I still get creepy crawlies thinking about those cockroaches. That's gross, but reminded me of a similar story. My brother fixes things like Xboxes, iPads, iPhones etc. for his friends. One day a guy brings him an old Xbox and my brother attempts to figure out why it wouldn't turn on. After trying several things, he eventually opens it up to find a nest of cockroaches in there. After his initial freak out, he promptly threw it in a trash bag, bug bombed it, and gave it back to the guy. Worked at a liquor store. A customer came in to buy 3 airplane bottles of vodka. I pulled the bottles from the case behind the register and finished our transaction. He came in 30 minutes later and said that he didn't realize until he got out that all 3 bottles were mysteriously empty, and didn't realize it until he opened each one and thus broke the seal. I worked at a well-known clothing retailer who made it their motto that customer service was the main priority. Basically, was working returns when a woman came in with worn out, torn up, dirty clothes from a decade ago and claimed she didn't like them and wanted to return them. Several items of clothing actually were brands our store has never sold. I went back and checked with the manager about what she wanted to do, and she told me that the customer was always right, even though these weren't even from our store and were super old and well worn. So I had to give her a bunch of store credit for stuff she never bought from us. Not super dramatic, but kind of sad. I was working the register in a mall department store and policy was to only take returns without tags if they had a receipt. Middle-aged woman comes up and says she wants a refund on some clothes. She dumps out what amounts to dirty laundry of clothes that haven't been sold for at least a year and a half. I asked if there was anything wrong, as being well worn, fit couldn't have been the issue. Lady says, no, but that the owner, her son, is in jail now and doesn't need them. She wanted full retail price, which she was happy to tell me what that should be. I tried politely enforcing the policy, but she wasn't having it. Called for a manager, who, to my dismay, gave her what she asked for. That was more than I was going to earn over 2 nights of work. I guess they needed the money more than the store did, but I couldn't believe the gall of somebody to legally rob a store like that. I witnessed one. I was waiting to get my hair cut at my local barber and this woman hobbles in. She had a bandage on her head, a bandage over her eye, her arm in a sling, and a cane. She sat down and launched into this horrible sob story about how she had been in this terrible accident and had spent all her money at the hospital and her car was totaled and now she had no way to get back home, etc. And of course asked for money. My barber was entirely unperturbed and said okay, just let me finish with my customers. The lady, thinking she'd hit a score, sat patiently as he did 5 haircuts. Then he calmly walked over to the phone and called the police. Boss, I just got a job in retail today. We'll be eating popcorn and taking notes on this thread. Run. Most of what you'll see is small change artists, fraudulent returns, and dumb people who think their long-winded life story is going to weigh in on your decision to process their out-of-policy return. Lube up. Kid came in claiming that it was his birthday but he lost. Later on said it was stolen. His phone, so he couldn't prove that he was entitled to a free drink but wanted to redeem it. Really? You lost or had your phone stolen and your number one priority is to get a free Frappuccino? And X200B. I told him I knew he was lying but that I'll give him a small one for free to get him out of my face and told him not to come back. Normally I'm not that hardline but I was in no mood to deal with that little motherfucker. When I worked at Borders we had this one couple that came in one day with probably like 30 books they wanted to return. They said they were all gifts and they didn't have the receipt for them. Which was fine because we did do returns like that for store credit. I start scanning the books and they are not showing up in our system, which is a problem because we couldn't do a return if they are not in the system. This wasn't super unusual because that happens sometimes with books that are special orders. But as I am going through then I can see that a couple of them have those little color stickers that thrift stores use to indicate the price of the books. Out of all the books they brought I think like maybe 4 or 5 of them were in our system. They seem really upset and are begging me if there was anything I could do because they were hoping to use the credit for Christmas gifts for their kids. Unfortunately, there was nothing I could do because if they didn't show up there was no way we could accept them. I put what I could on a gift card and told them that maybe they should try selling them on eBay. They said, yeah, I guess, and left the store with defeated look on their face, hauling their books back with them. My guess is they had this idea of going to a thrift store and buying a bunch of books that were in good shape and try to return them for full price to get cash or store credit. It wasn't that bad of an idea and a lot of people make a living flipping stuff like that on eBay now. But they didn't know that we didn't accept just any old book for a return. I felt really bad for them and wished I could do something more to help them, but I was a broke 18-year-old kid working a minimum wage job. She was trying to steal towels from the towel department because my water broke. She even made fake blood and a realistic crying baby come out of her vagina. Tossed them right out of the store. I still wonder where she got such a realistic animatronic baby though. It was warm to the touch and everything. Same thing happened to me driving a cab back in 2005. Picked up a fare headed to our local hospital claiming she was in labor, and when we arrived even had some friends dressed as orderlies nurses come out with a wheelchair and shouting all kinds of medical terms and everything. Wouldn't unlock the doors until she paid though, so I showed her. That's some next level shit. People from other countries ask for discounts constantly like they're trying to barter. Don't think I'd call that a scam. Haggling is SOP in some cultures. There was a video of an American in a mart in the Middle East. He asked the shop owner how much something was and then paid it, without haggling. The shop owner looked disappointed at getting full price.